trying to had the angle, shot it, made the play. So the defense, it stood up, and it needs to stand up again. And again, we'll find out exactly who these people are. But, folks, brace yourself. I think they're going to be players that we were counting on to defeat the Raiders, who are going to be now, all of a sudden, most likely, unavailable to us.
Well, and we've already seen this hit one of the league's AFC contenders, Chris Jones, who's been the key since he's been back for Kansas City. He is in the COVID protocols now for Kansas City. Of course, they play the Chargers on Thursday. If you haven't been paying attention, the Chiefs' defense is dramatically different when he's there and when he is not. And his return has been a big reason for their renaissance. And now he will be out of a monster game there. And so I did see the story earlier today where there were more tests on Monday, more positive tests than at any point for the league. Remember, at this time a year ago, this was dying down.
Yep.
We had the game against the Jets. That was early December, wasn't it, or late November? I forget. It was.
That was
right. Was it early December?
Jets. I think it went Jets, Giants, then the Steelers, something like that. It was pretty late into the season.
It was around this time.
Yeah,
then.
Yeah. It was around this time.
It was around this time where our entire receiver corps got wiped out. But it did feel like it was starting to dwindle at this time a year ago. And then by the time you got to the end of the season and the playoffs, it was virtually gone and out of the league. And now you're having these big spikes. It's wreaking havoc around sports as well. I know that the Brooklyn Nets are having big problems on this front. The NHL hockey team, the Calgary Flames, have as many as 9 or 10 players in COVID protocols, and they're going to have to shut down their team for 10 days. So this is where we are. It's where you are, and I agree with you. And I've said this before on the show from the standpoint of if you have vaccinated individuals who are asymptomatic, and they are, within a parameter, it's hard for me to understand why we're testing those people, because I think you're setting yourself up. I understand the overall spread of the disease that is going to continue to occur, but it's not something that's happening in society. You're not seeing it in society. Society is not following the rules of this. They're people who are symptomatic or vaccinated or whatever. It's not like they're staying home. The arenas are full. People are out to dinner. There's all of those things that are happening, and none of that's being held back. I don't know that sports should be treated any differently. I don't know I have the exact answer for it, but I've said from the beginning of this, I just don't know if testing vaccinated boosted players who are asymptomatic, if there makes sense in that.
I don't either, and that's something that the NFL and J.C. Treader and the NFLPA are going to have to figure out as we go forward here. A dicey situation to say the least, and we'll see how it impacts the Cleveland Browns this week, and it's unfortunate that we have to deal with something impacting Cleveland Browns in what is, again, a massive, massive game. You got to have this one. Next week, if there was ever one that, you could say, okay, that would be the week to maybe not be at full strength just for the sake of the fact that, you're not going to be favored in that game. Put it that way. I think you'll be favored in every game the rest of the season other than that one. So you got to make – and if you do that, if you win the games that you're favored in, you're going to make the playoffs, and you are going to be the AFC North champion.
Yeah. No, it's pretty much that simple. Yeah, I just saw the report from Kimberly Martin. If she tweets it, then you know that it's got significance to it coming out of our operation. When you talk about multiple key guys on offense, significant number of COVID cases, that is her reporting that's being done right now. Kimberly's had a lot of this stuff. She's with ESPN, and she's had a lot of the stuff that's broken and a lot of the newsy stuff. So that's certainly a red flag for what to expect here in the coming minutes, hours. I don't know. Do you have any idea what the timeline on this could be?
I'm guessing Coach Stefanski addresses the media at 1:45, and I would imagine that will be when we get our first official confirmation at that juncture as to what the case may be for this Cleveland Browns team. But if you think about on the offensive side of the ball, and you think about significant, the names that would come to mind for me immediately would be anybody on the offensive line due to our, depth issues there. And then obviously, Nick Chubb would be real significant.
Well, hasn't Nick had it already? Didn't he?
Did he miss for COVID? I hope so. I hope you're right. I don't know.
I thought he missed for COVID like a month ago. Didn't he, Gibbs?
I think you might be
that's
right.
What I thought.
All right, so then cross him off.
He
the
did.
list.
I think he missed.
Yep.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was in.
It was the same time you were out.
because he was symptomatic.
Right. He was the same week as me.
when
You're right.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yep.
That's why you don't remember. Yeah, it was
Right. The same time that
it
I was
right
out.
when you were.
That's why he missed the New England
Yeah.
game. That's why he missed the New. That's why
Right.
Dearness started against New England.
Yeah.
All right. So he's good then. He's 100% confirmed good to go. So it could be Austin Hooper. Hopefully you have the Chief back, but you'd look there. And then in the wide receiver room, any of those guys in the wide receiver room, I don't think have missed. Certainly DPJ or, to my knowledge, Jarvis at this juncture would have missed. Dearness at this point would be significant as well if Kareem is unavailable to you. So, really, there are a lot of options there, unfortunately, on the offense that could be pretty important to what it is that you're doing here in your operation. So, again, this is all. It's pointless to speculate. We're just kind of basically listing the offense because that's
when
what
Kimberly
it is.
says significant offensive players, then that's what's leading us to this conversation.
To reiterate, and
that it likely will be.
You were right that Nick Chubb is not a possibility, but I think everybody else offensively is, right? I'm trying to think. The Chief will be back.
Well, maybe. I mean, the other thing you got to remember on the Chief is, normally you're down a week, but that's Sunday to Sunday. So, when
he
you're
was
playing
earlier
on Sunday,
than
so it's a Saturday game. Correct.
Walker.
He was a Monday last week, right?
Yeah,
Monday
Chief
or
was
Tuesday
early in the
last
week. Yes.
Yeah.
So Chief should be okay.
So, I mean, hopefully.
It was Walker and the Hammer
hopefully.
that might not be back this week. Because they were on a Thursday, which would have gotten them back for a Sunday, but maybe not for a Saturday.
So that's where you stand.
Not
In the
great.
meantime,
Not great.
no, and Coach will join and have his press conference in about a half hour, and you get a better feel of that. Monday Night Football last night, pretty good, fun game between the Cardinals and the Rams. And I think I was thinking at the beginning of the year, almost felt like the Rams had to win a Super Bowl to justify the Stafford-Goff deal. That was kind of because they got there with Goff. They don't have to this year. I think it's justified. I think you saw last night why it's justified. The throw to Jefferson was absolutely insane. The throw to
dig
Cooper
to
Kupp
Odell?
I'll get there. the out to Cooper Kupp where there's like not even it can't be a millimeter off where it's an interception and it's a touchdown. The dig to Odell, the slant to Odell. This is why they're different with him. The NFC is tough. There's 4 teams that are legit Super Bowl contenders. I put them among them. But it's because of Stafford, and he elevates everything around him. And I think that you're seeing it with Odell where he had, 77 yards and another touchdown.
6 catches.
That chemistry will only continue to grow and you're seeing it week in and week out. They get more and more comfortable. He will continue to get open, and they will continue to be making plays offensively. And to me, that trade has justified itself with what you're seeing from Stafford this season.
Yeah, and it was a fun game to watch. I actually liked that bone uniform. Actually looked good to me last night against the red. I don't know why. If it was the opposite of the red made it look better, but I thought it looked good last night. And you got.
Is it possible it's just because the blue and the gold are so strong?
It
is.
If
that was a white uniform, wouldn't it have the same appeal?
Probably.
I think it's just the blue is so strong, and the yellow is so strong.
I almost felt last night that it almost looked white. It looked a little white, but you got Stafford 23 of 30, 287, 3 scores, almost 10 yards an attempt. Sony Michel ran it well. They did work in one jet sweep in the game, which is something we had talked about, to Van Jefferson, which picked up 10. Kupp 13 catches for 123 yards and a touchdown on 15 targets. Odell 6 for 77. Jefferson 2 for 58 in the score. I mean, and they were without Higbee. They were without Jalen Ramsey. And their D took it to Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Kyler, you'd say, look at the stats. 383 yards, 61 rushing, so over 444 yards of total offense, but the 2 turnovers. A.J. Green at 100 yards. James Conner continues his just remarkable renaissance. That one-handed catch he had was absurd. It was a fun game to watch, and yet the Rams, I thought, looked like the better and the more physical team and got there. And I'll tell you, I know Van Jefferson's got a little juice to him, but losing Woods and bringing in Odell was massive for that team, and he looks great again. I mean, it didn't work here. No need to rehash it. Variety of reasons. It's working there. I mean,
yeah, sure is.
And that's what he wanted personally. And that's obviously what the Rams had hoped it would be. And it's working.
Yeah, and they did that before Woods was down for the year. So they did that as just in addition to having
Robert
Robert
Woods.
Woods.
Three receivers be Woods, Beckham, and Kupp, which is stout.
With Jefferson. I mean, they were going to have all four of them out there. So, I mean, it was, that was their idea on that front. And you're seeing that it's paying off. And, it's amazing. Stafford's been able to stay healthy, which is something that I know Gibby is quick to point out that's dogged him his entire career, that he's soft and won't play through injuries. But he battles through. He absolutely battles through.
It is. It's amazing. He's trying to change the narrative that Gibby's been putting out there.
One of my favorite things, Gibby's got a lot of Pedro in him and a lot of Papa Jer in him. And this last line is great. I knew Cliff would fall apart in crunch time of big.
Like, that's in our rundown, folks. That's just so you know that
that's in the rundown.
I'm directing the narrative of the show.
But Kyler should have spiked the ball. Is that on Cliff?
Well, number one, the one guy, I don't know how many holding penalties on Aaron Donald one offensive player can have in a game, but if you had the over-under at about 4, I think you had the over.
There was a lot.
That negated a huge run at the end. Spike the ball to give yourself a chance.
Gibby, you have beef with the whole NFC West. You have beef with Stafford and the injuries. You have beef with Hot Seat in San Francisco.
Not Hot Seat, the opposite of that.
And then beef with Cliff in Arizona. The whole NFC West.
Pete Carroll, I will fight you.
Pete Carroll.
Don't forget that one.
He chews too much gum.
He does. It's an aggressive chew, for sure. Very, very good. Yeah, so that's where you are on this point. Did you have a chance, by the way?
Hold on, Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Browns wide receiver Jarvis Landry and guard Wyatt Teller tested positive and are being placed on the reserve COVID list. Sources tell Kimberly Martin and me. Scott Petrak, following up, can confirm Jarvis Landry, Wyatt Teller among Browns being placed on the COVID list. So what does that mean? Wide receiver. It means Hollywood Higgins is going to have to step up. Your top receivers are going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones and Hollywood Higgins. You hope that you get Anthony Schwartz back out of the concussion protocol to run some deep routes. But that's where you are at receiver. And then at the offensive line, Blake Hance or Michael Dunn, one of those two, who have both played well at guard.
I have a full list. This is from Murph. I have the full list from Murph now. So placed on the COVID-19 reserve list, Drew Forbes, Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, Tack McKinley, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills, all on the COVID-19 list. So so when we say significant, folks, that's as significant as it gets.
Well, and in addition, placed on the practice squad COVID list, JoJo Natson and Ross Travis. Tight end.
So Jamarcus Bradley's back on the practice squad. That's a note here. He'll be up for this game, so he's going to play receiver for you. You're going to have Donovan Peoples-Jones playing receiver, and you're going to have Hollywood Higgins and hopefully Anthony Schwartz back. Demetric Felton might play some of the slot stuff that you were getting out of Jarvis. That's where you're at receiver. Yeah. Tight end, Austin Hooper is out. You do not know yet.
He was literally the only tight end.
He played every snap, 100% of snaps.
100% of the snaps. Now he's
out. Hopefully David Njoku's back, and hopefully Harrison Bryant is back. So you could be okay at tight end. And I have full confidence if Chief is back that he can play 100% of the snaps and have a nice game for you. Here's where it gets messy.
This line conversation is not going to be fun, kids.
This is not pleasant. So your tackles are going to have to be, I'm guessing, Blake Hance and James Hudson.
Yeah.
And you are going to put Michael Dunn at guard. So your line will be, I don't know who you put at left tackle, but it's going to be Hance or Hudson. Hudson played well at right tackle. Do you just keep him there and say, okay, Hance has done both?
Probably Hance, don't you think?
Hance maybe. But Hudson was a left tackle in college. Hudson was a left tackle in college.
He played so well at right, on Sunday. Jeez, what a mess.
All right, so you've got Hance, we'll call it Hance at left tackle, or Hance or Hudson are your tackles. We'll figure out where they end up. Interior, you still got Batonio, Treader, and you're going to have Michael Dunn, who's played very well for you when called upon in the past.
Yeah.
You don't really have a backup tackle going. Like, if we suffer an injury in this game, it's going to be Alex Taylor, my guess, from the practice squad or something like that. You've got Nick Harris, who can still play some in the interior for you on the line. But this is not great. This is not a great scenario for the Cleveland Browns. And then the one defensive name, these are all good players. Tack McKinley is coming off of his best game. He led your team with 8 pressures. I gave him my game ball. Forced a fumble.
Right.
And it helps to have those 3 pass rushers out there together with Jadeveon and with Miles when going after a quarterback like a guy like Derek Carr. Now, going back to the tackle situation, we're going to get into Meet the Raiders as this goes on, probably tomorrow. Max Crosby is an excellent pass rusher, and you're going to have to give him help regardless, and he lines up against the right tackle predominantly. So if that was Hudson, he's going to need some level of help there. The good news is you've got your running backs and you've got your quarterback. And you've got the interior you got 40% of your what should be your starting offensive line. That's never great. Okay?
No.
You now from what your receivers were supposed to be are without the guys that everybody would pegged as your top 2 receivers, one who is no longer with the team, and now Jarvis Landry is out. Coming off of, Jarvis had 2 weeks ago 100 yards receiving against the Ravens, and this week scores a touchdown. Now DPJ was your leading receiver. But you are thin at receiver. You are thin on the offensive line. And barring updates, because you don't know the tight end room. Like right now, the only guy you can say for sure that's going to be there in the tight end room is Miller Forrestal, who was clearly used in rather limited fashion in that game. I mean, even though he was our second tight end, I'm guessing he played maybe 30% of the snaps. No, he played 15% of the snaps. So we got to hope for Chief and Harrison Bryant. That would be big. And then this is going to be a game of Nick Chubb. It's going to be a game of Dearness Johnson. And it is going to be a game of Donovan Peoples-Jones, who looked like the guy last week, and he's going to have to do it against the Raiders. This is not a great run defense. It is not a great defense overall, but they can get to the quarterback. They can be disruptive. And when your line is, our line is beaten up right now, and this COVID has wrecked it. The whole right side of your line is out. Now your left tackle is out. And they've got 2 good pass rushers. I was talking just about Max Crosby. Yannick Ngakwe's got 9 sacks himself.
Yeah, you're at a point now. I mean, this is reminiscent of, wasn't that the Steelers game where Baker's meeting people in the locker room that are going to block?
Or the Jets game where you're doing a walkthrough in a parking garage.
You're doing a walkthrough in a parking lot. I mean, that's pretty close to where you are now at this point with all who is out. Good job, Gibby, on that. Yeah, the walkthrough in the parking garage. I mean, that's kind of where you're at now. I mean, this from an offensive line standpoint, I don't know if you've ever been like this.
No, and if there is one thing that we can take some solace in, it is that the Vegas Raiders are 26th against the rush, giving up 125.3 yards per game. And I think if you're the Browns, that's where you're going to have to get them. Last year in a game that you would say was tough conditions, certainly, they came in here and ran the ball. The Raiders did. Right down the Browns' throat, 208 yards on the ground. They possessed it for 37 minutes of that football game. They win it 16-6. The Browns are going to have to do the opposite in this one. You're going to have to control the game. You're going to have to control the time of possession, and you are going to have to be the team that, frankly, takes it to your opponent. And you have to put your offensive line, I think, in situations that are advantageous to it, which my guess, this should be, if anything, it's going to be a good run-blocking group. Dunn's a good run blocker. Hance is a good run blocker because he's more of a guard. And James Hudson's a physical guy at tackle. So that's where we're going to have to do it. And like I said, I think the news, if we get the news Chief is back and Harrison Bryant's back, that goes a long way. Jarvis is the heart and soul of this team. And that is, I am devastated for him and for the football team that he will not be participating. Likely.
Yeah, hard to imagine. And the offensive line stuff is staggering at this point. It's just staggering. The Kevin Stefanski Show hits the road this week. Comes to you from Razzles in Olmsted Falls, presented by Bud Light. Join Z and Gerard Cherry Thursday night from 7 to 8 for giveaways, drink specials. Meet Browns legend Felix Wright. That's Thursday at 7. The Kevin Stefanski Show live from Razzles, presented by Bud Light. So that is the news of the day. Coming up next, we'll get into a little bit of the playoff picture. Go ahead, Z. You got a quick one?
This just strikes me as an odd phrasing. This is from Ian Rappaport. The Browns are now in enhanced COVID-19 protocols, placing Forbes, Hooper, Landry, McKinley, Teller, and Wills on the list. No quarterback Baker Mayfield as of now. Which is...
I find that odd, too. Like, why would it be as of now?
And why is that even mentioned in this?
Right. It would seem to make no point at all for that to be mentioned. right?
If he's not on the
Yeah.
list, you
He's
move
not on the
forward.
list. Why say as of
Yeah.
now? Like, what would be the point of that?
Click, click,
The only
click.
thing you could think of is like maybe bunch of close contact or something. I don't know. I think it's a very strange. Obviously,
You
everybody
can't be a
would have
close contact if you're vaccinated.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. That one doesn't make much sense to me. Odd phrasing. Yeah. All right. Certainly not the way you wanted to start a Tuesday show, but that's the reality of the NFL in year 2 of COVID-19. Coming up next, a little bit of the playoff picture. Again, Coach will address all of this in about 20 minutes. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
Beau here for my great friends at Raising Cane's. To give the gift of Raising Cane's gift card this year, so everyone on your list can enjoy hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers. Also, let Raising Cane's help you through the busy holiday season. Hot, fresh, made-to-order chicken finger meals. Download the Raising Cane's mobile app and get clicking for your chicken this holiday season. Visit RaisingCane'sChickenFingers.com. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love. And just to refresh, if you're just now joining us, it's official. The following roster moves have been made. Drew Forbes, Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, Tack McKinley, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills all go on the COVID reserve list. JoJo Natson, Ross Travis on the practice COVID list. Jamarcus Bradley signed to the practice squad. So that is where you are. It is obviously less than ideal. It's made more so by the fact that, and maybe it stings all the worse, just because of where you are in these standings. As we look at the AFC playoff pictures, this last week is complete, and you look around and you say you're right in the thick of it. Everything that could go your way did last week, and now here you sit at 7-6 with the schedule that you have in front of you, and now you're dealing with this with a COVID outbreak in your team, and one that's going to slow you down quite a bit, Z.
Listen, what I'm about to say right now is both serious and completely absurd, but the Hoff will be here in town. And I just texted him and I said, Hoff,
you did.
If you've got one game left in you, we might need to put out the Hoff signal for one game.
Oh, my God.
No
Good
Wills.
God almighty. Is that Joe Thomas?
Oh, my God. No Wills, no Conklin against Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby. I mean, if there ever was a situation that maybe called for the Hoff to paratroop in and help save this season, this might be it. And I know he's in tip-top shape because the workout program he's got us on this week is absurd. And I almost died.
Yeah, I honestly, like, from an offensive line standpoint, I don't know that I've seen anything quite like what you're going to see on Saturday. It's remarkable, and it's also important to note, guys, because as you said earlier, and I don't mean to salt wounds, but I just am giving you the reality of the situation. Remember last week, Anthony Walker Jr. and the Hammer weren't until what, Thursday?
Thursday. So I don't know if they'll be.
So today's Tuesday.
Right.
Today's Tuesday. So,
It is good, though,
that's a real thing, too.
For the following Saturday in Green Bay, all of these players will be good.
Yeah.
But we got to get through this one. And it is going to be tough, and you have to wonder what the game plan is going to look like for the Cleveland Browns. And we'll talk with Kevin Stefanski as this week goes on. But, boy, this feels like a game where you've got two great pass rushers on the other team, two great edge rushers, a struggling run D, and it is not easy to do what the Patriots did to the Buffalo Bills because, number one, the Bills are not built to stop the run, and they are a nickel team. We've talked about it ad nauseum, the uniqueness of that situation in every respect. But you might have to do, and it's calling for 30s and rain and winds. It's going to be very similar to the game that we played them last year, honestly, which was November 1st, 2020. And they out-physicaled us in that game, and this is a game that we need to out-physical them. Now, we did not have Nick Chubb in that game, and we will have Nick Chubb in this one, but we need to figure this out. This is going to be just an intense physical game of wills, and I feel great about our defense and their ability to what they're going to do, and our offense is going to have to make some plays and just grind it down. This feels to me like it is going to be a tight, tense, low-scoring, physical game all the way to the last whistle, and the Browns are going to have to do it with a makeshift group up front and find a way. This is find a way week now. We're on full-on DEFCON find a way.
Yeah, it's DEFCON 1. Did you watch Army-Navy on Saturday by chance?
I did not.
I watch every year. It's tremendous. Navy won, which is good. We have great friends in the Naval Academy and with the United States Navy. Great friends in the Army as well and the West Point people. The reason I bring it up, though, is because the Army-Navy game is a game where it feels like, if you watch it from start to finish, that the entire thing can be flipped with one mistake. Why, you ask? Because these people don't make mistakes, right? They have that type of discipline. There's rarely penalties in the Army-Navy game. There's rarely big plays in the Army-Navy game. Usually, it's a very straightforward process. Usually, it is a matter of inches, where in normal football, it's a matter of yards. And in the Army-Navy game, it's a matter of inches. And it was, again, on Saturday with Navy getting the win. I bring it up because I do think in many ways that's what this could look like Saturday. That this could be where every down, every play is critical. Every play feels like 10 in this game. You mentioned the weather. You think about the things that we have stacked against us just from a roster standpoint, the roadmap to victory, what that needs to look like. You think about what Kevin Stefanski was able to do without any receivers anybody had ever heard of against the Jets a year ago and almost pull out a victory there. I think it's almost going to take that type of creativity, that type of discipline to win on Saturday. And if you do, well, the cavalry will be coming over the hill. You will get all sorts of help coming for that game against Green Bay, and you'll be thrilled to have it. But if you have to find a way to patch it together on Saturday, and I just have a feeling it's going to feel like that, where it's any mistake is magnified tenfold.
And this is where special teams is going to play a huge role.
Yeah.
Your punter's ability
Field
to flip
position.
field position and to pin people back, and the kicking game. And look, Daniel Carlson is not Justin Tucker, but he's a darn good kicker. He has made his last 11 kicks in a row, and he is 16 for his last 18 on field goals. So we're talking about a player that is very good. He's good. He's from 40-plus this season. He is 10 of 12. He is 10 of 10 from 30 to 39. So we're talking about a kicker who's made over 90% of his kicks each of the last 2 seasons and has the leg. Over the last 2 years, he's 9 of 10 from 50-plus. So he is a weapon in this game, and Chase McLaughlin comes into this one struggling, I think is a fair way to say it, in terms of just his reliability putting the ball through the uprights. And, you know, McLaughlin's missed now a field goal in 3 straight games, and 4 of the last 5. The only game that he has not missed a field goal attempt was against the New England Patriots because he didn't attempt one. So we're talking about their kicker is 11 for his last 11. Our kicker is 4 for his last 8.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to come down to that.
That's going to matter in this game.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I feel good that there's a Colquitt back there. The hammer potentially down again, and he proved that he is more than up to the task. And so I think that's a positive in a game where field position will certainly be key. In terms of the importance of this game, you can't even it's impossible to overstate. Folks, this is the AFC Playoff Picture. New England is 9-4. Tennessee is the 2. They're 9-4. Kansas City's 9-4. We've been talking about them for a while. Then Baltimore and the Chargers are the 4 and the 5. They're both 8-5. Then Indy, Buffalo, us, Cincy, Denver, all 6-6. Pittsburgh 6-6-1. It can't get more tighter than that, my friend.
No,
From 4 on down.
It is absolutely monstrous for the Cleveland Browns this game. You've got to have it, and you have got to, like I said, find a way, and that's it. Josina Anderson on Twitter right now says, what is it going to take for the NFL to shorten the time between when fully vaccinated players have to test? This is beyond ridiculous. As stated multiple times since July, the NFL requiring booster shots for Tier 1, 2 staff. Tier 2 staff by December 27th is a good step. However, being allowed to potentially walk around positive for 7 days without a test confirming infection status is illogical. So what she is saying, she's calling for more testing of even vaccinated players to a more rigorous and perhaps even daily testing situation, which is what I believe the Browns deal with in the enhanced COVID protocols right now.
Don't you think that would have to be an NFLPA wish? What she's saying there, that the NFLPA stance will be that? Because why? I mean, JC's been talking about that going back to last summer.
Yep.
So I think that's probably an NFLPA push right there to try to get even more testing. I'm not certainly not a doctor and didn't stay at Holiday Inn Express, so I don't know exactly what the difference between that and what we're doing currently, and how that would impact, getting guys back sooner from this.
No, for the timeline, just for people to understand, Harrison Bryant missed 1 week, and he has a high ankle sprain. So, and then the Chief was on the COVID list. His 10th day would be Friday. So there's a good chance that the Chief is back for this game, which would be critical, I think, for the Cleveland Browns and what we're trying to do offensively, just because now you're without Jarvis. We've talked about him being our number 1 weapon anyway. You're going to need to rely on him, DPJ, but I really think this is going to be a game that's going to come down to, as you mentioned, just physicality, finding a way, and getting this line and running it. I mean, not an ideal scenario at this point, but it is happening all over. It's happening all over the league, and we have got to figure out how to overcome it. And if you do, Tom Pelissero saying the Browns-Raiders game remains on schedule for Saturday, I am told. So perhaps there even was a discussion about perhaps moving it back.
They're not doing that.
I don't think they'll do that either.
No, they did that early 2 seasons ago. They haven't done it since. Even at the end, my God, they didn't move our game. We had no receivers. They didn't move our game. We didn't have a coach. So they're not moving games now. We're long past. We're long across the Rubicon on moving games. I think I don't see any scenario of that. We'll hear from Coach on this momentarily. OBM, Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Coach Stefanski at the podium coming up shortly. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Your mattress baby to blame for a night's sleep where you're tossing and turning, or a sore neck like I had just last week. So if you've gone mattress shopping at traditional furniture stores, you've seen the outrageous prices. At Northeast Factory Direct, you get the same quality mattress at a fraction of the cost. Anything mattress related, they're going to have you covered, whether it's pillow top, memory foam, gel foam. It's all the sizes, and the best part is they've got a ton of mattresses in stock, and they're ready to deliver upon them, and you can get them right away. They also have 0% financing available. I encourage you to go see for yourself. Check them out, West 140th Street in Cleveland, Lakeland Boulevard in Euclid, or Freeway Drive in Macedonia, or shop them online anytime at northeastfactorydirect.com. Coach Stefanski will be addressing the media here via Zoom momentarily, because we are back to Zoom, right? We were anyway on that front, so that'll be something that's happening here momentarily, and he'll give an update on everything that we've seen. And just to catch you up, we've seen a lot. Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, Tack McKinley, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills, Drew Forbes, all placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. JoJo Nats and Ross Travis go to the practice squad COVID-19 list. So that's where you stand in terms of who has been affected. Remember, it's a Tuesday. Who knows what could come as the week goes on, but that's where we stand at this point. These are 5 significant players, 4 significant stalwarts on your offense as you go into a critical game against Vegas.
There's no doubt. And if there's one thing that you can say, if there's one positive that you have for the Cleveland Browns, number one is that Michael Dunn stepped in at a guard position for you in perhaps one of the biggest games this franchise has played in the last quarter century on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers, against Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, and played a phenomenal game.
Coach is up.
And you got Bill Callahan.
All right.
And the head coaches at the podium.
You do. Here he is.
If you want to start with the opening statement, you can go ahead, or you can get right into questions.
Okay, so injury front update from yesterday. Harrison Bryant and Ronnie Harrison, I expect those guys to practice tomorrow. You saw we added eight guys to the COVID list. Okay, we're going to have a team meeting and virtual meetings this afternoon. Then we'll have a walkthrough over here later today. That's really always been the plan, just off a short week playing on Saturday. So we'll bring the guys in this evening and get some work done. And it's an important week. This is a AFC opponent, good football team that we're facing at our place on Saturday. You know, the only show in town, which I think the guys are excited about. And it's a good team. Coach Bisaccia is, a veteran special teams coordinator. I think he's doing a great job leading that team right now. On offense, they're very, very explosive. I think Carr has incredible arm talent. Waller, Renfro, just an impressive group of pass receivers, a great running back that's a complete running back. On defense, it's a Gus Bradley defense, so that poses its own challenges. So we're going to have to work real hard this week to understand the intricacies of that defense, and they have 2 really, really good edge rushers. And I mentioned Coach Bisaccia, so the special teams is on point. So big challenge. I know the guys are excited about it, and we got to get our work in and get ready for Saturday. And with that, I'll take any questions.
First one going to come from Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Kevin, how does this change preparation for you this week? And how concerned are you about other potential positive tests given the number today?
Yeah, I think we'll follow the protocols, Jake. So we're in the intensive protocols, which means, you're wearing masks in the building, virtual meetings, cafeterias, just grab and go, those type of things. But we'll get our work in. That's what we do. We've done it before. We'll have our virtual meetings, and then when we're on the practice field, we'll make sure that we're locked in and ready to go.
Let's go to Mary Kay.
Yeah, Kevin, just the offensive line in general. Obviously, you were already down Jack Conklin. If you have to be without, Jed and Wyatt, and you're talking about the rush that the Raiders bring, can you just kind of go over a little bit about the challenge that will be for you?
Yeah, I think we've seen Mary Kay through last season, have seen it this year. Guys step up, and that's what the NFL is about. You're without guys due to injury or otherwise, and guys step up, and that's why we have a bunch of players on this team that we trust.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Nate Orrick.
Kevin, I realize that COVID-19 isn't anything new to anyone in your team, certainly. But here you are, you need to keep winning to achieve that playoff goal that you guys have stated. So do you feel the need today, or have you felt the need today to kind of deliver a message to the team, about the resilience that you preach, including in your post-game speech on Sunday?
No, I think, we got pros, Nate, and I think those guys understand, what's really important is this game on Saturday, because it's a good opponent. It's an AFC game, and we got to come ready to go. And that's why this week of preparation and how we handle these meetings, how we do when we're together out on the field, that's really all that matters.
And will Dunn step in as your right guard in preparation, and will Blake Hance be your left tackle in preparation?
I think we'll work through all those type of things, Nate, but obviously those are two guys that you mentioned that we certainly trust.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Dan Lobby next.
Hey, Kevin, I know with everything virtual, maybe this is tough, but have you gotten any kind of sense as to how your players have kind of responded to this news today?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see the guys, eyeball to eyeball yet, but I've been texting with them and I'll see them when they get over here for the walkthrough.
And then obviously, I know you guys kind of have to stay on pins and needles, hoping there aren't more positives, but does it at least help that all of this happened early in the week and it gives you at least a little time to game plan around it?
Yeah, honestly, Dan, I mean, you're right. You have to be ready throughout the week. We found out with Greg Newsome, you got to be ready for maybe the last play of practice. That's how it is. So we'll be ready. We'll adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
Next one's going to come from Dale Ryder.
Yeah, Kevin, just along the lines of being on pins and needles here, as far as filling these holes, I imagine a lot of the guys on the practice squad are going to get some important reps this week, but is there time for Andrew Berry to be able to bring bodies in if need be at this point, do you know?
Yeah, I think there's time, certainly. And you mentioned the guys on the practice squad. Our guys on the practice squad work really hard and they're here for a reason. They're developing, they're working every week, they're giving a great look, but on the side, they're trying to stay ready for their opportunity. So again, they're here for a reason.
And just looking at the guys that you had to put on the reserve list today, position groups stand out: tight ends, receivers, offensive line. Just what is the level of concern about I know you're following the protocols and all that, but just the concern of the interpositional group potential spread there?
Yeah, we'll worry about today.
Let's go to Mary Kay next.
Yeah, has there been any talk about, and do you know yet about, I'm sorry if this has been asked, but Jamie Gillen, Anthony Walker, and David Njoku in terms of their availability for the game? Are they trending in the right direction? And does there ever come a point where you guys have too many guys out and something needs to change in terms of the game?
Yeah, Mary Kay, I don't have an update on those guys in particular. Again, we'll just follow the protocols on each one of them. And then, we're just going to focus on today. I really think that's the prudent thing to do. Make sure that we do a great job with our virtual meetings, do a great job with this walkthrough.
Thank you.
Let's go to Tony Grossi next. Looks like Tony didn't raise his hand. Let's go to Scott Petrick now.
Hey, Kevin, have you changed your message to guys about what to do outside of the building? Are you telling them maybe we should stay home more and not be out in public as much?
Yeah, I think it's important, Scott, that you follow the rules that are in place, and I think to keep yourself and your family safe. So we've constantly messaged that. But, prior to right now, we haven't been in intensive protocols. We're in a really, really good spot from a vaccination status, all those type of things. So I think using general common sense, using the CDC guidelines is always smart.
So there's looking back on it, there's nothing you wish you had done different or had told the guys to maybe. I mean, I get it that they're vaccinated and going out in public, but I assume that's how a lot of these have happened.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics in that regard, Scott. I just, we make sure that we follow the rules.
And is it daily testing now for everybody?
It is, but I'm not sure for how long.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's go to Nate. Nate, you can go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, kind of along those lines, you mentioned vaccination status in the league. There was some news yesterday about, coaches and support staff and booster requirements. Where are you guys at in that process as far as coaches, support staff? And then has there been a, concerted effort to alert players to, the benefits of getting the booster? And if not, is this a wake-up call along those lines?
Yeah, Nate, we've definitely educated players and staff on the booster. I'm not going to get into specifics with that. I can tell you I'm boosted because that doesn't violate any laws.
All right, we're going to take one more from Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Kevin, you were talking about following the rules. Do you think you guys, or have you guys had discussions about more that you can do to mitigate what's going on? Is that something that might be in the offing, especially in light of today?
Yeah, I think with the news and with what's going on today, Jake, I think you just have to be smart, and that's what we've been trying to do really throughout this season, because the protocols have been in place all the way back through training camp. It's something that we've been working on even through this season, which we know last year was last year, but it's not like it hasn't gone away. We've been making sure that the guys are following the protocols that are put in place.
You mentioned, earlier, you're just going to worry about today, despite the concentration of positives. But given this is a little bit maybe of a moving target for you, I mean, how do you game plan, kind of not knowing who you might have, later in the week or even tomorrow?
Yeah, we know who we have today, and then we'll adjust accordingly.
All right, Coach, it looks like we don't have anybody else that raised their hand.
Hey, Scott's got his hand raised right there.
Scott just raised his hand. We can go ahead and make Scott our final question for the day. Scott, you can go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I know you got all this new stuff going on today, but given the short week, how does that stress it even more, or stress you guys even more in the preparation for Saturday? Just given, obviously one less day.
Yeah, we're just honestly, Scott, we're focused on Saturday, 4:30, AFC opponent, good football team, great players, great coaches. So we are excited about the opportunity. That's kind of what's in front of us. So that's really where our focus is.
Thanks.
You're up.
All right, there's Coach Stefanski at the podium. We will react to some of the things he said there and where we go on this short week already, and now short-staffed as well here with the Cleveland Browns. If a car, truck, or motorcycle accident caused you injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk & Elk's a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Reaction to everything Coach just said coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, second hour here on a Tuesday. EOX Vantage has a local presence and a global footprint. It's trusted by some of the world's biggest brands. Here's a testimonial from EOX Vantage client Ed Shield. He's the Vice President of Skyward Specialty Insurance. We know Ed. The tools that they've designed with EOX Vantage are real business changers that open the door for all sorts of valuable opportunities and efficiencies. They help our team members stay on the same page while collaborating remotely, make it easy to communicate with customers, cut way down on manual data entry and the associated input errors, and cut hours off processes and response times. Operationally, a brand new ball game for us, and it can be for you too. I encourage you to learn more about EOX Vantage. Great people, great team. You can visit them at www.eoxvantage.com or call 216-298-1616. So I thought as we reset, Z, having listened to what Coach had to say and just get you up to date on where you are if you're just joining us, Drew Forbes, Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, Tech McKinley, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills, all on the COVID-19 list. Yes, that's 5 starters. The practice COVID-19, Joju Natson and Ross Travis. From Coach's presser, some good news, though. Harrison Bryant, Ronnie Harrison, both due at practice tomorrow, he thought. So I thought that was good news. He would not speculate on Gillen, Walker, or Njoku in terms of their availability, but the timeline would suggest, based on what we've dealt with in previous, COVID-positive cases, that at least Chief would be in line to be able to go on Saturday, but those are my words, not his. As we look at this just from let's just go offensively, what does this look like? If we play a lot of 2 tight end personnel. If you can have Chief and you can have Harrison Bryant, what does that look like? What is a set that we can get into offensively and say, okay, here's 11 guys that we can matriculate the ball down the field? Because I do think that's what it will be. I think this will be a battle over inches on Saturday. This will be trying to find your way to get a couple of inches. It'll be a matter of first downs here and there. It'll be a field position game. This will be an old school game in every way. The sloppy track only adds to it if that's indeed what we get. This to me feels like a slobber knocker, low scoring, slugfest, Army-Navy type of football game. But just from a set standpoint, what do you like best? What looks best with this group?
All right. So if I'm going through that for the Cleveland Browns right now, and I'm trying to look at, all right, what do we have here? What are we doing here with this offense in this particular situation? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at different, formations and different personnel groups that have at this point been good for the Cleveland Browns. And so we'll start on offense and we'll say to yourselves, okay, let's take a look at what this means in terms of, the personnel that we're using and where do we rank in these various personnels. So for the Browns, with these injuries, I think one of the personnel groupings that you're going to see are going to be, you're going to look at a lot of what I would call your 12 personnel. So that's going to be one running back, 2 wide receivers, who would most likely be, I'm guessing, Donovan Peoples-Jones and Hollywood Higgins, 2 tight ends, David Njoku and Harrison Bryant, and Nick Chubb. So that's pretty good. That's a fine. Yeah. That's fine. We can play out of that. We can do just fine out of that grouping. And that's a grouping that we have done a good job out of so far this season. And if you're looking at, play result, just total for that one, average yards per play out of 12 personnel, the Browns this year, 4.6 yards a play. So it hasn't been a formation that's been necessarily great for us, to be perfectly honest. But I think that's one that you're going to have to use here for the Cleveland Browns, because you're talking about, the 2 tight ends, Harrison Bryant and the Chief. They're going to be good for you. By the way, we haven't run it a ton this year. 2 tight ends with 2 receivers, 1 back. What we have done a lot of is what we'll call 22 personnel. And so what's 22 personnel? That's 2 running backs, and that is 2 tight ends. And so that would be a way to have Chubb with Janovich in the backfield, along with the 2 tight ends, and then 1 receiver, which would be, I'm guessing, Donovan Peoples-Jones for the Cleveland Browns. Now, we haven't run that formation a ton this year. We've done that only about 30 plays. We've averaged 7 yards a play out of that. Our EPA per play, which is a top metric, is positive .038. So we have been one of the most effective and efficient teams out of that personnel grouping. And I go back to it. When you're averaging 6.9, so 7 yards of play, Arizona's number 1, Miami number 2. We would be number 3 out of that personnel grouping. Now, the other kind of grouping that we could use, I'm guessing this week more of, because I don't think we're going to get into a ton of 11. I could be wrong, but that's not something we've been great at anyway. And now you talk about not having Jarvis as a part of that 3-receiver set, is what you call 21 personnel. And so that's 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers. So it'd be Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones, probably the chief, and then Nick Chubb with a fullback, Andy Janovich. Out of that, the Browns have been, again, this is where you've been pretty solid as a team out of this personnel grouping, and you have done on that. You've averaged over 6 yards per play, about 7 yards per play again here. So those are the kind of groupings that I think we might see, 22, 21, 12, and then I still think it is very likely that we stick with our 13 personnel. And our 13 personnel in this case would be likely the 2 tight ends with either a Miller Forrestal or perhaps now bringing in, whether it's a Nick Harris, whether it's somebody that's called up off of the practice squad to be a 3rd tight end eligible, as we had Blake Hance, I think, run that 18 times or so last week. Blake Hance is now going to be needed to play offensive line and won't be doing that. So I think those are the groupings you're going to see. Line up, run heavy, lead blocking with a fullback, and able to try to go and take advantage of it. Now, you could even see sometimes Dearness Johnson and Nick Chubb on the field together and putting Dearness in some of the roles you thought for Kareem Hunt a week ago, because I know that was going to be a much bigger part of our game plan than we got to show with Kareem going down early.
Good job out of you on all of the opportunities there. And from an offensive line standpoint, if you're going, if you think of it from going right to left, so more likely than not, you're looking at, would it go Hudson, Dunn, Treader, Bitonio, Hance?
That's what I would think, yeah.
Right? I mean,
I
just right.
think of it, left to right. Yeah, exactly. Hance,
left to right.
Bitonio,
go that way.
Treader, Dunn, Hudson. I think that's what you're going to have to go with.
Yeah. And then behind that, you still do have Nick Harris. We haven't heard his name in forever, but was obviously thought highly of, a draft pick out of Washington, ability to play center and guard. He held up last year when called upon. Hasn't been called upon as much this year because we haven't had the injuries to the interior of the offensive line like we had a year ago. But he was a guy that's certainly trustworthy as well. And then if something happens on the outside at the tackles, where do we go there?
All right, so here's who's on the active roster right now today from just an offensive line standpoint. Nick Harris and J.C. Treader, who are listed as pure centers, even though we know that he can play some guard. Bitonio, Dunn, Hance, guards, because Teller is now on the COVID reserve list. This is following those moves. So this is who's here right now.
Yeah.
And then you get down to the tackle position. And the tackle position on the roster as it is written right now has James Hudson on it. Fiend. So let's talk on the practice squad right now. Who's here on the practice squad? We got a couple of guards. Froholt, who was with us and on the active roster for a little bit. Another guard out of Grambling State named David Moore, who's a rookie, who appeared in 2 games earlier this year with the New York Jets. And then we have the tackle that I mentioned earlier in the show, Alex Taylor, who was with the Browns last year on the practice squad. He spent some time in Chicago as well. He's been active for a couple games this year. He's the 6'8" former basketball player out of South Carolina State, who was with us in the preseason.
He would have to be the most likely, wouldn't he, as the 3rd tackle?
So he's one, and I'm trying to think of some names right now with, that have some ties to us in this era, right? And so I'm looking up Greg Sinnott right now, and he's on the Colts. So let me see if he's on the practice squad of the Colts, because Greg Sinnott was a guy that I thought had a heck of a preseason. Now, he hasn't stayed here with us. He is currently on the practice squad of the Colts. So he's somebody that the Browns would be able to, if they wanted, sign from their practice squad to the active roster, who was at least put in the full training camp with us and in this system. So that's a name that I would – these are not scores. I'm just talking – right now we're looking for anybody with links.
We're grasping at straws here, kids.
To this team.
Anybody that knows the system.
And I hate to break it to you.
That's what we're doing.
The response from the Huff was not indicative of a man who is planning to put his cleats on or lace up his pads anytime soon. He was more just lamenting the situation, not nominating himself as a potential solution. So we can cross that off the list. But Taylor's going to be up.
He has said he has one game left, but that might just be the big game.
I would imagine it would only be in the postseason. Yeah.
In the postseason,
and the post of the postseason,
the postest of the postseason,
the game.
I believe that you're
if you
that would be the one,
the Super Bowl,
if you will. Lots of bad advice out there about gambling, from secret methods to picking lottery numbers to betting big when you're on a roll. These myths can lose you money and get you a lot of trouble. So before you wager, find out what's real and what isn't at KeepItFunOhio.com. Coming up next, we'll get Gribbs' take on all of this. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Rumpke Waste Recycling, family owned and operated. Whether you join them as a customer or as an employee, you're going to be part of the family. I encourage you to visit Rumpke.com to learn more. And with that, we head out on the hotline for a visit with our good buddy, Sir Andrew Gribble, senior staff writer, joining us. Well, this is just so much. It's how many things on a weekly basis, and now 5 key contributor starters on the COVID list. Gribbs, as you started to hear the rumblings of this, and you started to maybe fear what could be, Does this reach what you feared it could be? It seems a lot to try to overcome on a Saturday, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to take. It's a lot for any team to take. And I think that, this is shades of kind of what you dealt with at times last year. I think this is nothing new to the Browns and what they've had to deal with. I think when I heard Kevin Stefanski talk today, I was getting flashbacks to a lot of the press conferences they had last year at this time. So it's just a big amount of players. A lot of them are key contributors, and they're hitting you at areas on the roster from, if you're just talking about this from a football sense, areas where you already weren't at full strength. I mean, you look at wide receiver with Jarvis Landry. I mean, this is a group that you're looking to get more out of this year, and then to lose a guy like Jarvis Landry, that's tough. You look at the offensive line, you're already down Jack Conklin. Now you're down 2 more starters, including one who's playing the position arguably as well as anyone in the NFL right now, and Wyatt Teller. And then the tight end position, you're dealing with a Harrison Bryant injury. David Njoku's already on the COVID list, and then now Austin Hooper's on the COVID list. And then on defense, Tack McKinley's coming off the best game he's played for the Browns, and maybe his best game in years. And you lose him. So it's tough. I mean, it's something that when you look at it from a sheer number standpoint, that's a lot of players. Add on to the fact you've got Kareem Hunt likely out this week, and then Greg Newsome and Anthony Schwartz in the concussion protocol. It's a lot to take in. The short week doesn't help. But again, this is one of those where, as coming from the head coach, it's a no excuses mindset, and they're going to have to tap into levels of the roster that they even last year didn't have to tap into at any point in the process.
Yeah, Gribbs, and we'll start on the offensive side of the ball where you're hit pretty hard. The line now, you'd have to imagine it looks something like left to right, Hance, Bitonio, Treader, Dunn, Hudson, and you're going against a Raiders team that has Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby, one of the top tandems in the league. Certainly maybe not the top, but they're in the discussion, and they can get after the quarterback. Are you kind of preparing yourself, for a game that's in some ways maybe similar to last year's Raider game? It's going to be kind of nasty weather where it's going to come down to the team that is more physical and that can run the ball is the team that's going to win?
Yeah, I think so. I was kind of eyeing that forecast earlier this week and was kind of figuring that this was going to be the case. And now if you go into it, if you're thinking that that's probably what it's going to be, and I think that's the kind of the logical conclusions that we're all making with looking at Hance at left tackle and Michael Dunn at right guard. I mean, you also have the possibility potentially of a guy like a Nick Harris who's played at right guard. You have guys on the practice squad who have been on the active roster this year. I think Hjalta Froholt is another guy that's been on the active roster at times this year. So you have some other options at those positions, but those seem like the 2 likeliest. And the good news is, in times you've seen those guys play at a high level for you, and you've trusted them. I thought the games in particular that Blake Hance had to play at left tackle, I thought he did a pretty serviceable job for you. So I think you've got that experience under your belt. You wouldn't have to throw someone fresh in there. And the good news is James Hudson's coming off a pretty solid performance himself at right tackle. So again, not great, not the situation you envisioned, playing in kind of these crunch time playoff moments with what you thought was the best offensive line in the NFL. But it's all about adjustments. And I think that they're just going to have, like you saw last week, the Browns have some time to prepare. They clearly had some things schemed to adjust to the deficiencies at tight end last week. They're going to have to scheme some things up to deal with a different looking offensive line this week. I mean, everyone kind of brings up the Jets game last year. I still think that's an outlier in all these things because that was day of or day before you make the trip out to New York. This gives you some time, just some late hours for Coach Stefanski and his guys.
Yeah, and for Andrew Berry as well in terms of scouring to see who can bring in here. Coach was asked about that. Are there people he can bring in? And he said, yeah, there's time for that. Gribbs, as we head out to the receiver position, obviously Jarvis, and then Hoop obviously a tight end, but he was really your only healthy. He played every snap in the game last weekend, and now he goes down. We wait on Chief. Good news on Harrison Bryant, as it looks like he's going to practice tomorrow. But just that group, Nathan did a fantastic job of breaking down like all the possible position groupings and what that could look like and what we could have success in. What say you on that front? Knowing what you know now, hoping that there are no more positives, what can this team rely on offensively to move the chains enough? I said earlier in the show that with all of this considered and the weather and all of it, it feels like this could be a little bit like an old-school Army-Navy game where it's a fight for a battle of inches in field position. If that is the case, what do you rely upon if you're Kevin Stefanski on Saturday?
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned now, I mean, we're early in this week. I mean, you're going to be in the daily testing regimen here for we'll see how long the NFL requires that. But right now, I think it's not ideal. Clearly, you would prefer to have Austin Hooper and Jarvis Landry out there. But from a pass catcher standpoint, in the most optimistic scenario, where if you potentially get back Harrison Bryant and David Njoku, that makes you solid, not at your best, but it's solid at the tight end position. I think you look at DPJ, you look at Rashard Higgins, you look at a potential player like a Jamarcus Bradley, who lost amid all that roster news today. He was added back to the practice squad today, so he's someone that could maybe be an option for you on Saturday. He's obviously played some significant snaps for this team already this season. And then you look at what the Browns did early in that game against the Ravens before the Kareem Hunt injury. You had both those running backs out there. Dearness Johnson's another guy that can get out there as well and can make plays for you on the ground, through the air. You just have to tap into your playmakers. Look at a guy like Demetric Felton and get him involved and find ways to just get your best guys on the field. I think from that perspective, compared to the other position groups, I think you're all right from a pass catcher standpoint. It's just going to be a lot of groupings and mixing and matching that we just haven't seen before this year.
It isn't. And look, if the Chief is back, and if Harrison Bryant is back, and that's what Stefanski alluded to, you can do a lot of your 2 tight end or even 3 tight end stuff using, we don't know who that extra line, maybe Alex Taylor gets called up from the practice squad as the extra lineman, or you could go 2 tight ends, 2 receivers with Higgins and DPJ, 1 back in Chubb, or 2 backs, Janovich, Chubb, the 2 tight ends, 1 receiver, and still hit, I think, a lot of your core concepts that you want to run in this offense effectively. So while it feels daunting, and the most daunting part is obviously the 5 guys blocking, at least you got Bill Callahan coaching them up. And Bill Callahan, if there's anybody that you wanted to say, all right, work a miracle with a room, isn't he the guy that you would say you wanted to do that?
Yeah, and I would compare this to the Steelers game last year, where in the playoffs, where you were arguably in a worse situation then than you are now. And that at least this time, as of now, you're going with guys who have played for you. I mean, you're going with guys who have that experience in your system. I mean, at this time last year, Michael Dunn hadn't played at all, and you needed him in that playoff game. You needed Blake Hansen in that playoff game. He just joined the team. Now, if those are your 2 guys you're calling upon, that's a full year in the system for those guys. 6 starts for Blake Hansen this year. Michael Dunn's gotten in and out and really just kind of gotten better behind the scenes here as well. So it seems bad because I think you're already counting on the fact that you lost Conklin at that right tackle position. But you're at least right now, and this is the affordability of time, you're dealing with a situation that you have a time to prepare for, and you're not throwing guys in there as of now who have not done it before.
Yeah, and I think as we take the lens off of this a little bit and pull the scope back, and you take a look at where you are, everything has gone our way the last 2 weeks. I mean, everything that needed to happen in the division has happened. You won your game against the Ravens on Sunday. You're now just a game out of first in the division. Gribbs, I know you've looked at the remaining schedules for the rest of the teams in our division. If you can find a way to scratch and claw, get a win on Saturday, I got a pretty good feeling you could be in first place in the AFC North by the time you get to Monday, my friend. This has set up, despite the news of today, very well here over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a huge game, and that's why winning on this past Sunday was so important. You've given yourself a little bit of leeway. You've given yourself the option of maybe not having to win out to make the playoffs. You've got your options. Obviously, you want to win as many of these games as you can right now, and this is a big one, not just in terms of the division, but in terms of just getting your AFC record better as well. I thought you guys have probably seen it or even talked about it already, the FPI projections for the Browns in the playoffs. And the highest odds by far are that 4 seed, because the key is to win this division to get in the playoffs. The odds are lower for those wild card spots, which is just crazy to fathom. But that's the thing. You got to take care of business with all your games and get up there in the AFC North. Fortunately, right now, as of now, because of division record, you've got the tiebreaker over the Ravens, and that's a huge luxury. And you've got the head-to-head right now over the Bengals as well. So those are 2 great things to have in your pocket as you're going forward in these Final 4 games.
It's massive. It's massive. And for the Browns, right, and I think you got to just take care of business in the AFC, and so that's why this game on Saturday becomes so critical, and you've got to find a way to step up. Now, if there's one bit of good news, it's on the defensive side of the ball that, you hope you'll get Ronnie Harrison back. I think losing Tech's big. I mean, I've been a big Tech proponent, and I think he's played his best football late in the year, and certainly last week, 8 pressures. He forces a fumble. That's going to be a big one. But this is where Clowney, who stepped up late in that game, he's got to continue to step up. Odenebo's giving them some quality reps as a backup end. We'll need to see more of that. Porter Gustin likely will be up for this game as well, a guy who's made big plays late in the season. But this D has carried this football team, Gribbs, and it has the opportunity, I think, to do so once again against a Raiders team that struggles to protect the passer and struggles to run the football.
Yeah, I mean, you've just got to keep generating the pressure with that front four. I think that when Garrett and Clowney are playing at the level they have right now, you've got a chance no matter what. I think that they can just disrupt any play out there and kind of make things so difficult for opposing offenses. And I think the key thing for me too is, especially with the weather and especially with what happened last year, you got to be able to stop what the Raiders are going to want to do on the ground. We don't know yet what's going on with Darren Waller, if he's going to be available for this game. So they're going to try to run the ball, and they're going to try to get to Hunter Renfrow, who's caught a ton of passes over the past 3 or 4 weeks and is a kind of player that can, in this kind of offense, he can extend drives by just picking up those short yardage and getting first downs. I mean, those stopping Josh Jacobs, stopping Hunter Renfrow, those are going to be probably 2 keys to what you want to do. And I think getting pressure from those 2 guys on the edge, that's going to be huge for this team going forward. You clearly miss Tack having him out there, but this defense has also played some great games without Tack, so they've got to rally behind that and make the most of what they got.
Gribbs, what do you make in a game like this that we feel is going to end up being a game of inches, and it's going to be a game of the team that imposes their will and the team that makes the fewest mistakes? This doesn't feel like it's going to be a track meet on either side. Honestly, offensively, the Browns D has done such a good job, and then offensively, we're limited a little bit, and you got to take some shots. But if the weather is, we'll call it rainy and windy and sleety, that makes it difficult to play fun offensive football. Domes for everybody. Just saying. How important, though, is special teams? They've got a kicker in Daniel Carlson. I mean, we saw the most diabolical kicking weapon in the league a week ago in Justin Tucker, but Carlson's made his last 11 field goals. This is a guy over the last 2 years, 9 of 10 from 50-plus. He comes in on a heater, whereas our kicker, Chase McLaughlin, is now 4 for his last 8 kicking the football on field goal attempts. Is this a concern? Is this I think it's could be an area that plays a big role in this game on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's big, and you don't know what's going on with if Jamie Gillan's going to be back in time for this game as well. I thought Dustin Colquitt did a really good job, especially when you consider the circumstances. Sunday gave you what you expected from a veteran punter, but you bring up a good point. I mean, just the feeling you got. I don't think Daniel Carlson's quite at that stage yet of being as good as Justin Tucker, but the feeling you got in the pit of your stomach when the Ravens recovered that onside kick, the first thing you thought of was Justin Tucker. I mean, and that is such an edge that the Ravens came into that game with. And it's fortunate. It makes you feel uneasy every time you play the Ravens. But yeah, I mean, you need to see more. You need to see. I think the trust is still there in Chase McLaughlin. I think that was a tough miss he had in the fourth quarter there, and I think it's one of those two. Another, overlooked in all these COVID-19 guys on the list is JoJo Natson. I mean, he's been your guy returning punts and kicks and has done a solid job and is a professional at that position. You've got to hope Demetri Felton has a bounce back performance here where you need to secure the ball and secure those possessions, because we've seen it everywhere around the league. It gave the Bears a fighting chance against the Packers. These turnovers on special teams
cost the Bengals and helped us. I mean, the Bengals had back-to-back muffs. Listen, as far as that goes, I trust Mike Prefer ultimately to make the right decisions for this football team, but JoJo turns in one of the headiest plays in the National Football League all season on that kickoff where he puts his foot out of bounds so we get the ball at the 40. But, maybe you let Dearness, who's done a good job running kicks back, run the kicks back, and maybe you got, DPJ just back there, catch the ball. That's something he did very well for the Browns last year.
Yeah, and then clearly the way to eliminate a guy like Carlson having an impact is close the game out. And I think that's something that the Browns want to be better than they were this past Sunday. I think that you didn't see what we've been able to see in the past, where that running game just takes over in the fourth quarter and just kind of eliminates the opponent's ability to close it out and not even have a chance to attempt a final field goal. I think that if you're comparing games and kind of matchups, this is reminding me, especially with the adversity facing the team, reminding me a little bit of Week 7 against the Broncos. I mean, you're expecting a low-scoring game with some guys in positions that you're not used to seeing them out there. You can still go out there and get the job done and kind of seal it away without having a ton of drama if you do things the right way, just like the Browns did against the Broncos a few weeks ago.
Good stuff, Gribbs. As always, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We will go one thought around the league coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. you know my man Alex at Northeast Factory Direct. They deal in volume, don't have the fancy showroom floor. They've cut out the expensive overhead, never any pressure. All they do is encourage customers to check around at other places and comparison shop. Go right ahead. If you're sick and tired of your updated kitchen, this is the perfect time to upgrade to a new modern design. And the best part, the process is super simple. The appointment and design are free. There's no obligation. They'll let you take it with you. They also have 0% financing available. Northeast Factory Direct cuts all the unnecessary costs associated with traditional cabinet stores. So you buy nice stuff at really incredible prices. It's as easy as that, and you win really big with that. So if you're thinking about remodeling your kitchen, go to northeastfactorydirect.com and schedule your appointment today. Time for one thought around the NFL. Usually we get through about 4 of these. Gibbe, how are you?
Yeah, we're on pace for that, looking at the timing. I would say we're right there.
We got really gonna have to be one thought.
Been quite a day, kids.
I was gonna say
quite a day. Not great. The good news is, if there is one bit of good news, we have been here before. Sadly, we have been here before.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Crazy, man. Yeah.
All right. Let's turn the attention to one thought from Week 14 in the National Football League. One thought on the following games, and we'll start off with the Packers beating the Bears 45-30. Green Bay now the number 1 team in the NFC at 10-3. Bears 4-9 playing it out.
Thought a game performance from Justin Fields and the Bears, and it was competitive
really
for
first half.
a little while, and then Aaron Rodgers is just sublime. He and Devontae Adams are as lethal a combo as exists in the National Football League.
The Packers, I think, are the best team in the NFL right now. I've been saying that for a couple weeks now. I still feel that way. If you have to play at Lambeau with crowd, remember Tom beat them last year without crowd. So this year they'll have crowd if they can get home field. They've got to play us. They've got to play Baltimore this week. They'll be favored in both of those games likely. And I like nobody owned. This was like 12.5. I remember we were doing the scores. I'm like, I don't care. It could have been 14.5, and I would have been fine. Owns them. Ownership of the Chicago Bears.
The biggest story will be how long can Aaron Rodgers' toe hold out?
He looked fine Sunday.
Saw Rex Ryan say that he's a toe expert and get people to walk off the set.
Boy,
tremendous.
did he. Up next, Tampa Bay beats Buffalo 33-27 in overtime. The Bills have lost 2 in a row, now 7-6. Tampa Bay cruising, now the number 2 seed in the NFC.
I actually go the Bills side of this. I'm surprised. I love their fight. I mean, that shows me that they're game for the postseason, not for our perspective, but just for in terms of what they are as a franchise. They could have pushed all the chips in. Tampa Bay had all the power in this game, and they kept fighting, and they made it a game and forced overtime. So I think this is one of those rare instances where a team can come a long ways in a loss.
And then on the other side, I mean, Tom Brady is the oldest MVP in any professional sport when he won it at the age of 40, and now he's probably going to do it again at the age of 44, breaking his own record, which is just stunning. And, you know, to see Leonard Fournette become what we thought he was going to be when he was drafted by the Jags, and Gronk back, and Brashad Perriman, love him. To see him get the walk-off was a nice moment.
It will be interesting if the playoffs started today, obviously. Buffalo would play Tennessee. That's a very winnable game for the Buffalo Bills. And then you're playing into week 2, and anything's on the table, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
San Francisco takes down the Bengals 26-23 in overtime. Cincinnati can't win a home game. That's the big takeaway for me. For the road games, they seem to be doing just fine. But at home, 3-4 this year.
Takeaway for me is that Jimmy Garoppolo needed to make some big-time throws down the stretch. He did. Joe Burrow did as well. But, you know, Kittle, monster game. Ayuk is playing well. Deebo Samuel, even though he was limited in this one, continues to play well. The Niners are their game, and no hot seat. No more. You can't even say it. We can't even joke about it the rest of the way.
Sad.
The Bengals' offensive ceiling is as high as any offensive ceiling in the AFC, save for Kansas City, and it's close to them.
And one thing that struck me watching that game is
the future.
Yes,
like the future.
Absolutely.
Not just now, but in the future. Like, they've got 3 stud receivers, a great tight end, a great back, and a franchise quarterback.
They got to get some offensive line help, though.
They do. They do. But they're a year ahead of schedule. I don't think they thought they'd be here now. They're where we were last year.
We thought they're playing very well.
We knew they'd be frisky. They're more than frisky. And offensively, Man, they're terrifying.
I really think if we can get a number one in this draft or this offseason, whatever it may be, that I see a lot of T. Higgins and DPJ as that physical number two who can make a lot of plays.
I'm fine with that comp. I think, but you got to get your Jamar Chase.
Yes.
All I know is if both teams keep winning, we only have one more 1 o'clock game on this schedule, and it won't stay at 1 o'clock.
Who needs 1 o'clock?
No.
We played at 1 o'clock 17 weeks for
now,
years.
I did see, so the NFL did put something out that week 18 they are going to move 2 games to Saturday. And I know that there was a little bit of discussion. People were like, well, could we get moved? Because the week 18 NFL schedule is not great. I will say this. They would be doing the Browns a serious disservice since we play on Monday night.
Yeah, I don't think that'll
to have to turn around then and play Saturday.
That's not going to happen.
I think we'll stay at Sunday. Could it be later in the day? Possibly. The Dallas Cowboys take down Washington 27-20, making good on Coach McCarthy's guarantee.
Micah Parsons.
Stud.
Woo! Sometimes you just draft a football player and then you say, hey, instead of trying to make him something he's not, let's just let him be what he is. And what he is going to be a defensive rookie of the year. He's got a chance to be an all-pro. He's unreal. He's a game wrecker.
I go back to that scene from Hard Knocks where he's working on his pass rush moves with DeMarcus Ware and said, well, he's an off-ball linebacker. Well, they said, no, we're going to use him there. By the way, if you look at his sacks per pass rush snap, had he been playing edge rusher the whole season and that's like all he did was every time there was a pass rush, he rushed the passer, he'd have 25 right now.
Yeah, he's a Tasmanian devil.
By the way, from Adam Schefter, the Rams have closed their training facility and have entered the NFL's intensive protocols.
There you go.
They won't be the last ones, I got a feeling. Up next, Kansas City downs the Las Vegas Raiders 48-9. And Kansas City, the hottest team in the NFL now, winners of 6 consecutive foosball games.
They're the best team in the AFC right now. And
Yes.
and one of the most underrated and not even talked about.
I am glad you went down this road because I saw your tweet.
Trades of the year was them giving a bag of Doritos to the Steelers for Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram, since coming there, has been a force, and what that's done is allowed Chris Jones to come back inside, and now Chris Jones is dominating where he was. Remember, they were trying to play him outside, and he's been great at it, but he is one of the most dominant pass rushers in the NFL inside. Ingram coming there has totally changed that defense from a stat perspective, and again, the deep analytics, it's probably, I saw Doug Farr was saying that it was the biggest single individual change than the Bucs last year with Vita Vea and without Vita Vea, which at the time was the biggest one-player change he'd seen. So that trade has been gangbusters for them, under the radar. Nobody even talks about it, and it's transformed that defense.
It has. They're back.
By the way, some breaking news out of Kansas City about Chris Jones. He's now in COVID protocol.
Yep.
Yeah,
So add that one to the list. Up next, the Denver Broncos downing the Detroit Lions 38-10. Denver doing just enough to hang around.
Frisky team with those two backs. They got Gordon going too. I know you love Williams, but they got Gordon going. It's a nice game as well.
Go away.
I know you don't like that from the fantasy perspective, but they're a frisky squad. And Detroit, it wasn't as lopsided. They had 2 turnovers inside the 5. Like, it's just stuff that happens to 1 in 11 teams.
The Broncos are awesome, and on like 100 fewer carries than Jonathan Taylor, who's second in the NFL in missed tackles forced this season, Javonte Williams has more. Let the guy live. 2022, he will be a top 5 pick in your fantasy drafts. Write that down.
Write it down. Up next, the Chargers down the Giants 37-21. Sets up 8-5 Los Angeles playing host to Kansas City on Thursday Night Foosball.
The Giants are
Justin
bad.
Herbert rolled right on a dead sprint, stopped, planted his feet for a millisecond, and threw a ball 70 yards in the air on a dime.
He's awesome.
That's my one thought.
So the announcer called it the most impressive pass that he has ever seen.
It was Harlan, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've seen many more impressive. I mean, it looked like something, like in one of the old Madden games where they made like Michael Vick too good, and he would be able to run around back there and then throw it on a rope. Because it was a rope. It wasn't like, it was a rope. 70 yards on a rope. Unbelievable throw.
The Saints take down the New York Jets 30-9. Good for you, New Orleans. You did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, I believe we had that one.
I didn't have that one.
I believe I had that.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
That was
I
one of
can't
my.
remember.
By the way, it ended up being a good week for both of us.
Yeah, we did
it
well.
was an elite week for you, and mine wasn't bad.
Yeah, I had a good week.
Mine was.
Yeah, we did okay.
Titans shut out Jacksonville 20-0. Hey, they're
Dead
doing
eyes
just enough to
handshake.
keep that number 2 seed, man.
That dead eyes limp handshake that Urban Meyer gave Mike Vrabel, boy, that goes back to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and about whenever the last year Vrabel was there. That was a lot of years in the making right there, kids.
Yeah,
That's
but
a
don't
lot
you
of
want
years
to
in the
act?
making.
Don't you think that that was kind of weak? I thought by him.
Which one?
Not by Vrabel.
Well, of course it was. I mean, he doesn't take losing well. I think we know that by now. They've got all sorts of problems down there, but that was a long time in the making for Mike Vrabel, and my guess is that handshake felt pretty good.
That's a victory lap, kids. Seahawks down the Texans 33-13. Davis Mills. Sure you don't want to go back to Tyrod Taylor?
This was what? I know I had this one. This was a 12, 11 point spread or something, and Seattle's 7.5.
Seattle's going to play themselves back in here with another solid effort.
Well, they're going to drill teams like this that are pathetic, and Houston's pathetic.
They're awful.
All right, final one. So
My
many
gutless
words.
Falcons.
Falcons beat the Panthers 29-21. Falcons hanging around for that 7th playoff spot in the NFC.
My gutless Falcons taking care of my business. Love to see it, boys.
Yeah, you love to see that. His comeback was so great, the I'm back and all of that.
Skittles.
And since then, yeah, you really nailed that. The one thing that I want to talk about from this game is that Cordero Patterson is one of the most remarkable and just phenomenal stories in the NFL.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Like, it's crazy what is happening with him.
For a decade, he couldn't find a position. Nobody knew what to do with him, and now they're just like, hey, make him a running back.
And he's good at it. And they kind of did it a little bit in Chicago. He would get, like a few carries here or there when David Montgomery would get hurt. But he scores every week, and he can run it. He can catch it. I feel like he was drafted around like 2010. I know it wasn't that long ago, but I don't know. It's a long time. I feel like I was still full on in the fantasy business when he was doing that stuff.
He played at Tennessee. I mean, that's a long time ago, man. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns
So
Daily
much.
on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau here for Raising Cane's. Get the gift of Raising Cane's gift card this year so that everyone on your list can enjoy hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers. Also, let Raising Cane's help you throughout the busy holiday season with hot, fresh, made-to-order chicken finger meals. Download the Raising Cane's mobile app and get clicking for chicken. This holiday season, Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love. We'll be having that for Black Cobra's birthday on Sunday. So we have that going for us, which is very, very nice. So there you have it, kids. A busy little Tuesday. Still a lot of week to go. The good news is you got time to prepare for it, though, Z, but it's a lot to try to drink in here with all of the news today.
Find a way. This is Find a Way Saturday. Your season is on the line. You got to find a way. We've got great coaching. We've got great players. We got guys who have been waiting for an opportunity like this who are going to get it. I'm thrilled. If the Chief is back to see him in an every down role, I think he's going to have a monster game. So let's go do it. No excuses. And by the way, you mentioned Black Cobra Sunday, Boods, my son Bryce, Saturday.
Yes.
It's birthdays all over the place. Let's go.
Gorgeous.
Spoil
Beautiful.
a big
What a
birthday weekend.
That's it. Good job. We're back tomorrow for more fun. The next